Discipline. Oh, I'm telling you, that one could be a little tough. We don't know really what to do, right? Well, we're going to learn about it, how to do that today. And one of the things that every like OSHA is expecting is how to keep record keeping and keeping it correctly and making sure it's available when you need it. All right. So knowledge. Sam, what do you think about knowledge? Without knowledge, we cannot do what?
You can't do anything without knowledge, and you certainly can't keep your employees safe.
Cannot do it. Without knowledge, we can make mistakes. Could that be the case?
Absolutely.
We can make actually incorrect errors. We can make decisions that maybe could be costly, or it could cost someone's health or life. So getting the knowledge is crucial and important to be able to be a manager, supervisor, foreman, lead, or any type of position that you're leading your employees in the workplace. So the knowledge should be vast and it should be attainable. And things like, for example, what does our local, state, and federal laws require of us as managers? What are the policies and what are the procedures that our company is actually implementing? And are we clear about those policies? And are we knowledgeable in how to be able to implement them, right? Also, where to find them. Now, sometimes we may not know that we may have certain reports or information that we have to have available. And so the documentation, we need to be able to know where they're at and be able to know how to find it and how to store these items. We need to know about how to proceed in all kind of manner with our tools, our equipment, our machinery, anything that could be dangerous. We should know what to do with these. Also, the employees. What could all employees should be doing one task, or they could do multiple tasks, or do they have the talent or the knowledge themselves on how to be able to do these tasks safely? These are things that we need to know and learn. Also, emergency procedures. What happens if there's an emergency of all types? And Sam, what kind of emergencies do you think that that could rise up in a workplace?
So there could be a bunch of different types of emergencies. You could have injured employees. You could have gas leaks. You could have a coronavirus problem. That's kind of an emergency right now. You could have all kinds of stuff, and whatever it is, you got to be prepared for it. You should try to anticipate whatever emergencies can come up in your particular field. So if you're working on a construction site, you know that your emergencies very well could be gas leaks. It could be injuries. Could be things like that. If you're working in a chemical plant, then you obviously know that emergencies very likely will be chemical related. So whatever the emergency that may come up in your particular field, you want to try to know what it is before it happens and try to make any procedures and do anything you can to stop it. But definitely having emergency procedures if you can't.
Now, Sam, not every law is the same and not every state is the same. Is that correct? So knowing local, state, and federal, could that be something that we need to know?
You'd absolutely want to know. For instance, some of the laws up in Northern California are far more strict when it comes to coronavirus than it is in Southern California. So that's an example right off the top right there.
Yeah, a big one. And also, it also differs even between like federal OSHA and state OSHA on some of the guidelines that within that state. Is that correct?
That would be correct. So if you're not working on a federal property or on a military base in California, then you really don't have to worry a whole lot about Fed code. You're really just concentrating on Cal OSHA.
Now, having and knowing the state and local federal laws and understanding the laws within those states, how does that work with developing a company policy and a compliance on procedures and policies within a company? And how does that work?
The important part about knowing all of these local law, state, and Fed related stuff is important when you write your program. that's when it's most important, because you need to know what the laws are to actually write your programs. When you're writing an injury and illness prevention program, or any of the programs that go below it, you need to know what your state and local laws are to actually write the program. So you can't even start unless you know this stuff. The easiest thing to do is to actually let somebody else write the program for you, like we do for our customers. We make that a pretty easy thing for them. But writing it yourself, good heavens, that's a real task. Trying to get all that stuff together and make sure that it's compliant and make sure that everything is right in the program. That's difficult.
All right, let's talk about that training of that knowledge. So supervisors must ensure that all new and current employees receive proper training. What would happen if we are lacking in this part of this requirement, if we are not training? What could the consequence be, Sam?
So the consequences here will be that you'll have an injury or something will go wrong. I think that a lot of places take the word of the employee. I've done this a million times. And they're not ensuring that all of their current or new employees are receiving proper training. I've seen countless times where an employee's been injured on a machine or doing a specific job when the response was, well, he said he's done it a million times. You have to make sure that your employees are trained when they start. I've seen it all the time. And that includes your current employees. So you just got to make sure that you do that.
And also, there's a certain kind of a continuancy or program of training required by law. Like we all know that construction must conduct safety training meetings every minimum of 10 business days. Is that correct? Or like a tool gate meeting?
Yeah, that is correct. And that would be for any company that sends their employees out on job sites. So there might be a few places that may not be in construction, but send their people out onto job sites. They would be required to do training every 10 business days
now,
as well.
Now that is for that type of industry and construction, but also supervisors should be training like in general industry. Do they have to do it in 10 business days, or it has to be further out, like a monthly?
So yeah, general industry, it's really on a monthly basis. You want to have some sort of training that's specific to what you're doing. So it's a good idea to do it monthly.
Now, I understand that federal or state OSHA also require that there's certain type of trainings that have to be done within that period of time, but also that some of them have to be repeated on a yearly basis. Is that correct?
There are lessons that you want to make sure that you do all the time. Everybody knows the important ones: heat and illness, ladders, emergency action plan, things like that. But at the end of the webinar, I have a link, and I've had my people get me some stuff that I can tell you a location, because Cal OSHA actually has a list of recommended training, and we'll put that up in the chat and see if we can send that out to you.
And the funny part about this particular one is not only not understanding how often you should be doing the training, but also the interesting part is I've heard many complaints that say, hey, Javier, how come do I have to train the same thing over every year? I mean, it's boring. It can be boring. But there's really reasons why people have to be trained on certain topics every year. Is that correct?
That is correct. You want to make sure that you're doing these particular recommended lessons once a year.
And it could be for the fact that it could be a turnaround within the workforce, right? You got people coming in and going in some companies much more often than other companies. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So here, when a new employee is coming in, they got to get that training again. And that's where the repetition comes into play. And that's where the government wants to make sure that we're all being trained and understand those trainings that have been done and completed within that year, even though there may be a big turnaround. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So training is actually a very important part of grabbing and understanding and getting the knowledge in order for employees to be able to do their tasks comfortably and safely. Very important part.
Right
And
on.
supervisors really have to make sure that we're getting it done. Now, let's go to the next slide. I think that that one now we're going to be talking about training topics, but training topics is very important to understand also, not to just train frivolously, but exactly what employees are getting the training on what they're doing. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are lots of things that you should be training on a particular job that a lot of people may overlook, and it's common.
And not only that, but so they have to be being trained on the hazards on the job they're actually doing. So let's say somebody in the office it has a certain type of task and responsibilities. They're at a different level than somebody, for example, in the shop working with a CNC machine. Is that correct?
It would be, but some of the things that on a job like that is maybe the person from the office walks through the shop sometimes. They should have training on what they should do and what they should not do in that type of environment. And that type of training is often overlooked because they don't view it as a hazard.
That is correct. So they could actually get hurt if they go into the shop, even though they're not doing a certain particular job.
Right, just walking through the shop.
That's it. So knowing and understanding, maybe I should wear eye protection just in case things are flying all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Even though I'm working in the office. Also, training in how to report things that are hazardous. Now, some employees don't report anything. What would the reasons why they don't want to report something like hazards?
So I think that the biggest reason that people don't want to report hazards is because generally making it not a hazard makes their job more difficult. So you could get a lot of pushback because of that, because it will require them to take extra steps to do the job that they're actually doing. So it's important to make sure that you have a policy and you have training to encourage your employees to actually report and recognize hazards.
So here in this part, I think it's very important to be able to train and give the confidence to an employee to actually understand that it's okay to report hazards, not to be afraid for the consequences. It's all good. So we need to train in a manner that we open the confidence in an employee to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to report the hazard, even though I may have caused it. Right? That takes a lot. Is that correct?
It does. That it does.
So, yeah. Sometimes what happens is I think employees maybe sometimes they're a little bit shy, and I think the supervisor here at this point is crucial in the training, even the verbiage, to be able to kind of give that confidence and that ability to say it's okay for you to report the hazards on all levels, and they could be coming from all different levels. It could be that they're creating themselves, or maybe how about another fellow employee? Could that be a little sticky?
They could be sticky. You got to have a way that people can report these hazards, even if nobody else knows it. Confidentiality probably is a good idea when it comes to reporting hazards. He may not want other people to know that he's made these reports.
So this is a very important part on this topic to be able to just we could go in a little bit deeper and find out, but this is something you want to encourage all your employees to be trained and to understand your company policy and understanding exactly why this is so good for everyone to know. Now, also how to select, care, and store personal protection equipment. This is crucial because if somebody cannot or does not understand what a PPE how does it work, or how it's supposed to be processed and selected for the type of work, this could be a problem, right, Sam?
It is, and I think the biggest challenge that supervisors and managers have when it comes to PPE is having to replace it. That seems like it's such a common issue, and it's always because somebody's left it at home, or it gets damaged a lot, or it's scratched. There's numerous reasons why they don't have it in the morning or they can't use it in the morning, but making sure that you have a program that teaches them what to do with it and how to take care of it, I think drastically reduces the amount of PPE that you'll be putting out every day and every week and every month.
And that really impacts a company's bottom line. I'm sure it does.
Especially smaller companies.
That's
Well,
right.
it impacts them all.
That's right. That's right. So here in this training, some of the training should be that the employees are once given the personal protection equipment, the training should be focused on their responsibilities. We could say it that way, right? Their responsibilities on taking care of it and making sure that they're using it correctly based on manufacturer designation. So I'll give you an example and tell me if I'm wrong here. I've seen inspections where you have a very small framed individual wearing an extra large piece of equipment like a harness that does not fit correctly. Would that be a problem?
That would be a problem, a very big problem.
Could you imagine? Or how about a face mask, a respirator? Somebody who needs an extra large and they're using a small, for example. Could that be an issue for the person's health?
Well, that would be the same. Yeah, same as wearing one that's too big.
That's right. So knowing and understanding how to select and how to use it is very important, as well as how to maintain and taking care of it. So here by law in the training, let's say a supervisor wants to train on how to take care of personal protection equipment. Which is the best way of getting the information to be able to provide them that information on that particular PPE that they're going to be using? Could it be the manufacturer?
It could be. You could also pull up any training that we might supply on that. But you've got to get the training from somewhere, and manufacturer is a good place to get it from sometimes.
Also, some supervisors, I know because they've asked me this question before. Sometimes they don't know how to, there's so many type of similar personal protection equipment. And in the training part for oneself as a supervisor or manager, it's kind of hard to find out exactly what type to use for a certain application. Could the safety data sheets give us that information or help us to be able to identify which ones that we need as well?
Sure. STS sheets, there's many different ways that you could identify what proper PPE you should be wearing. STS is definitely one of them. We could probably do a whole webinar on that particular subject, but
that's it. Yeah. So yeah, supervisors. So there are other ways of being able to get it. You have resources like GotSafety, safety data sheets, manufacturers' recommendations. They're all there available that you can find training on, and that training can be implemented with such a manner that you're going to feel comfortable in understanding that it can be selected correctly. It also tells you how to be able to how to take care of the personal protection equipment, how to store it, and also the responsibilities of an employee. That is crucial for them to be able to, when they get a piece of equipment, that it lasts and that it's being taken care of for the full length of the time that you have designated for it to work. So that's something important. How about training topics on, for example, equipment, tools, and the inspection of? How does that work, Sam?
So this is a big one. A lot of most of injury is due to faulty equipment or missing guards that could easily have been identified had they had some sort of inspection process before they were allowed to use the equipment. So that's probably one of the biggest things. Missing guards or damaged equipment that they're using without inspecting it. So you've got to make sure that you inspect your tools and you inspect your equipment.
So the knowledge of understanding in the training part is how to be able to inspect the certain equipment that your company may be involved. One of the most common and one of the most popular piece of equipment out there would be the forklift. Wouldn't you say that?
I would, definitely.
Okay. So that's probably just about anywhere. So knowing how to inspect like that piece of equipment is very crucial and important on how to be able to do it. Because if you're not trained correctly on what to look for, could an employee make a mistake and not report something, not doing it on purpose?
Of course they are. Of course they could. But the important part here is that as the supervisor or the management, you may not know how to inspect every single piece of gear that you have on the site. but it is highly important that you have employees that do. You may not be an expert with every single tool that you have on the site, but it's important that you have people that do and do understand how it works and do understand how to do the inspections. Being the supervisor doesn't make you the all-encompassing knowledge of truth. You're not going to know everything, but you must have people that do have individual knowledge on specific things. This will save you a lot of trouble.
Oh, a lot of trouble and headaches. There is an example, for example, that comes to my mind of a good thing of not being able to know how to inspect your equipment. There's been injuries where, for example, where this is lacking within a company. And for example, that somebody, let's say they were working on a machine, you have new employees coming in and there's guards that may be missing, but the supervisor is not understanding that there is guards missing. Since there was no inspection in place, we have no idea that there should be a guard in that place. And then you have employees working within that machine with an exposed machine on pinch points or crushing situations, and they're oblivious because there were no inspections done, there's no trainings done, and nobody understands the complexity of that particular situation. So that could be a problem. Sam?
Excellent example.
Yeah, that could be a big problem. So the training and understanding of how to inspect tools, machinery, equipment, it's vital to making sure everyone's safe. Now, how to, I think we talked a little about this, how to report near misses and accidents could be very challenging for employees as well. Because sometimes what happens is, I would think a very high ratio, maybe up in the above 50 for sure %. Sometimes people are actually creating their own near misses. What do you say about that?
Oh, I would say that this has probably got to be one of the easiest things to do, because all you have to ask the employees, if you almost died, you should report it so that you don't almost die again. I mean, that just seems easy to me. But like you said, some people don't like to report things, but it's definitely on the one of the things, most important things to report near misses.
So when managers and supervisors are not verbally training their employees on this particular topic, more than likely employees have the tendency, because they may have been the contributor, right, to a near miss or accidents or something like that, they probably will stay quiet.
It's
not say anything. Yeah.
And then move on.
That was close.
Wow.
Did anybody see me? Right? That kind of effect, because usually the effect on this is people start laughing because it's of nervousness that they almost got killed. But then they have a tendency to do this. I'm going to stay quiet. So here, supervisors, managers, foremen, if they train their employees to be able to understand the importance of being able to contribute and understand the training of actually reporting this could be what? Saving lives in the future, Sam?
Absolutely.
This is a big part.
And one of the big things about this is filling out the actual form, having some sort of form that you fill out when you have near misses. And the big deal about this is people in the future can use these things. It's not only useful to the people that have had this specific accident, but it's also important for other people, maybe in different departments or even in different locations altogether, to be able to identify and see some near misses and read about them and say, all right, this is what happened. We can definitely do something to make sure that does not happen here. So knowing how to fill out the proper forms when you have one of these things so that you can share it with others is pretty dang important.
So this could be a point of reference for future processes. It could be by filling out these forms, it's going to be crucial for you to be able to look and see if there's any, maybe you're promoted to another department, but now that department has forms where they could go back and look at instances that happened in your department when you were actually a supervisor and manager. So this helps the company, it helps the manager, and helps employees, correct?
Helps everybody.
Helps everybody.
Right.
So keeping these forms are very important. Very good. All right.
Right.
So here we have training, and we talked about a minimum of 10 days for construction. We talked about 30 days for general industry. But now here we're talking about refresher additional training or in-depth training, that how I call it, that is so important for employees to be able to understand and know that they're available for them. And refresher training could be because of certain things, right? They should be given when a new procedure is being introduced. Now, sometimes companies are changing procedures because they've been analyzing through the inspections, and a new procedure could bring a new hazard. And by bringing a new hazard here at this position, we have to identify and then communicate that. Isn't that what the IIPP say, Sam?
That's absolutely what the IAPP says. You've got to make sure that you're doing new training anytime that there's something introduced. And you really should be doing inspections. This will have a lot to do with the inspections that you do on your work environment to find these new things or anything that's been introduced into the environment that might require more training, or a change of something that already exists, like your JSAs or something like that, maybe a lockout tagout procedure. So you really got to look around and make sure that you're doing an inspection on your areas and identifying any type of new tools, procedures, any new equipment or hazards that are in the environment. It's important to do.
Now, there's sometimes what happens is that people misunderstanding in-depth training. Actually, in-depth training is a little further than just saying, by the way, this is what's happening within 1 second and then walking away, right? I mean, it's got to be more intricate than just that, right? Oh, by the way, I just introduced this new machine. Watch out. I mean, that's we can't do that, right? We have to actually go into it a little bit deeper. Now, sometimes people are busy. Supervisors, my heart goes out to supervisors and managers because actually they're getting influx of many things going on within a day. And sometimes it's easy to go ahead and train somebody, do it in depth, and saying, hey, come on, so-and-so, let's talk about this. And then they walk away feeling good about it, but they forget to do something crucial. And that's actually documenting that training. Does that happen a lot, Sam?
It happens a whole lot. This is the important part of training, and has a lot to do with anything legal on the other side. If you're being inspected by any type of agency or anything like that, they're going to want to see attendance sheets. If you don't have attendance sheets of some sort, either paper, sign-in sheets, or even an electronic sign-off, then what that means is you haven't done it at all. You may have done it, but if you don't have a signature from the employee of the date that you did it, the subject matter, and the person who did the training, then to everybody else, you didn't do it at all. So it's important to protect the company. You've got to get these signatures.
Because we have to be able to prove, and for any situation when it comes to agencies like federal OSHA and Cal OSHA and state OSHA, we need to be able to prove these trainings that it actually happened. And the only way that you could do that is by getting signatures from your employee on the topics that they've done. And it's always a good thing to be very accurate in the way you keep your records, including maybe even a copy of the subject matter, right? That you've been discussing, along with that signature, could really go a long way improving the topic or the situation on the conversation you had with that employee. As a supervisor and manager, you're going to really be very thankful that you did if you follow this and develop a good habit of keeping these records in place.
Easy one.
Easy one. So in-depth training, very important part. Inspections. Now, this is something that is required by law. Inspections, just like training, and inspections should include many things, right? Here, work site in general, the areas. So let's talk about a little bit in depth about this. So like in a construction site, what should we be looking for?
So when you're going on to if you're talking about a construction site, usually there's always somebody who walks around in the morning, usually. that does a safety walk. Sometimes they do this multiple times per day, depending on what's going on. But they're looking for things like bad shoring, any lead edges where fall protection might be needed, or any railing that's bad, maybe bad scaffolding, employees that are not wearing the proper PPE or wearing the proper protective gear, or using tools that are not compliant. There's a number of different things that they would be looking for. On in say a general industry machine shop, they're looking for things on the floor that are going to make people slip and fall, blocked exits, blocked fire extinguishers, or walk areas or aisles, anything like that. Any type of machines that have guards off, any unsafe conditions. That's what they're going to be looking for. People not wearing PPE tools, stuff like that.
So this is a very important part, because actually inspections keeps everybody kind of on their toes. I would think so. When there's inspections, we're bringing these things that could be hazardous to light. That's basically what it is. If we're not, as as managers and supervisors, foremen, leadmen, if we're not inspecting whether we are actually, depending on your industry, regardless, this could be a problem when you don't identify, because it could creep up behind you unknowingly, and now somebody could get hurt. Is that the way the government views it, Sam?
Absolutely. You've got to do inspections. If you're not doing inspections, it's not going to work out well for anybody.
Also, I think the government, the way they view it is, if there's a supervisor and manager who is on top of this and is really making sure that, and they're doing their inspections the way they're supposed to be doing them, and it's kind of showing a proactiveness and a caring of implementation of their safety program within that company. Wouldn't you say that?
That is true. That is true. Absolutely.
So you're actually showing to everybody who's actually would be looking at an inspection report, if, for example, there would be an incident, that you did your due diligence and doing your responsibility, making sure that you are keeping your employees safe by doing inspections. And that includes everything that Sam said: worksite areas, your personal protection equipment being used, and that if they're not in faulty condition, that your tools are up to par, they're not falling apart, that your equipment is working correctly, including machines. So this is something that is very, very important. Matter of fact, this is what I call the tripod of the requirements of government. We're looking on trainings, inspections. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then also the documentation of those two things by keeping records and so that's kind of a tripod that holds everything up together when it comes to your safety program. And that's what the government's looking for.
Spot on.
Right on. Okay, wonderful. So we're learning, man. I'm excited about this. We're learning quite a bit of stuff. Okay, inspections, hazard, and unsafe conditions. Any hazard or unsafe conditions that were noticed or noted during the inspection must be corrected. How many times, Sam, have we gone out on inspections and we've seen the same thing over and over and over again, and they haven't been corrected? What kind of consequences could a manager or the company get into by not addressing these once we identified inspections, but not making the corrections?
So there, and I don't like to get too in depth into this, but there are legal ramifications for a company not knowingly not doing things or not correcting things, and say accidents happen because of it. I don't like to get into too deep into that, because everybody knows pretty much you've got to protect your employees, and as management, it's your duty to do that. And if you don't do it, then there will be problems. But when you do find things that need to be fixed, tagging or locking them out is a great way to fix it. Even installing guards, or like the last one says, you're creating a new process. So these are a few of the different things that you can do to protect the company. But we're also not just talking about protecting the company, but it's also from protecting the employees, because really the employees are the most important thing here. We got to keep them safe, and correcting them or pulling it out if you can't fix it is really the easiest thing to do.
So here, for example, going back to that new employee, where I'm a supervisor, I'm a manager, and I'm implementing my inspections, and I notice that this machine is missing a guard. Here, I love what you just said. Then here we implement. Hey, we got to stop that machine. Let's get the guard in place, right? And then we're documenting that we fixed the problem, because we're documenting the inspection, but we want to document also the correction. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So once we did that, we want to document the correction that we did implement lockout tagout. And we want to make sure that we have a record of that we did ahead and put and installed that guard that was missing, that we identified in the inspection. And then also we could even say, go a little further and kind of backtrack and including and even ask why is this guard not on this machine? Could even in-depth training fall into play at that point, Sam? Could that be?
It could be. Maybe somebody doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe they haven't been trained to begin with. Maybe they forgot something. There could be a number of reasons. Maybe the machine doesn't work right when that piece is on there. Maybe it's easier for them to do their job. Whatever the reason is, if you find something wrong, you'll want to correct it.
But what I love about this, what I'm getting at, is if we have the knowledge of doing training, inspections, and the correction of the inspections, here the opportunities come into play where a supervisor and manager could actually tackle a couple of things all at one shot. Could it not be?
Absolutely.
So here now, what I guess what I'm trying to say is some of these things could be very daunting, and you go, my goodness, I have to do all this. But in reality, once you put it into play, it becomes second nature, and it becomes just part of the process. And once you incorporate it within your company, I want you, the manager and the supervisor, to feel that it's attainable, that it is something that you can do, that it's not something out of this world that is just so daunting that it cannot be done, and you can do it. It's just putting a little bit of effort and understanding how this works. Sam, I think we've had success after success with a lot of our clients that have tried this. They find it once they implement it, it's pretty cool, right?
Pretty easy.
Pretty easy. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, inspection records. So here, when we have in the part of the correction, so let's say we do a correction, we implement it and keep a record, but let's say we had to buy a part of the machine to make that correction. Should we keep a receipt, for example?
We should keep a receipt for this. This is the probably the most difficult part of the inspection record, keeping these type of things in a record so that you could produce them later. This is probably the most difficult part of that, but anything you do, you've got to keep on receipts, pictures, videos, forms, or checklists or something to show that you've actually done these corrections and you've done these inspections. This is the proof. This is the proof for doing that.
And also, I think pictures would be probably the easiest, right? You take a picture of before and after, and you incorporate it within your inspection, and now you have proof even further.
Sure, but for instance, in our reports, we take a picture of the hazard. The only thing that's required is to say that you did fix it. So having a picture of the fix isn't necessarily something that you're required to have. You're required to have a box or something that says, I fixed it and it was fixed by this person on such and such a date.
And that would be a kind of a taking responsibility by signing it, correct?
Absolutely.
Right.
But having any of these things to document that you've fixed something is perfectly fine.
Beautiful. So this is some of the things that we could do and use to make sure that we finalize that circle of inspection and then the completion process.
Yep. Pretty easy.
Wonderful.
All right.
Okay, investigating accidents. Now, this could be sometimes very challenging for managers and supervisors when something happens, right? But this is very crucial and a very important part of the process of a responsibility for a manager or supervisor to do. So, if something does happen, who should be the primary focus at the point of an incident?
Well,
Employee, right?
obviously, yeah, most likely the employee, the person that the
Right.
accident happened to.
That's right. So we have to know and to attend to that injured individual and make sure that we attend to them by calling paramedics or implementing first aid procedures that you may have incorporated within your company, making sure that the person is being treated right away and taken care of. But then once that is done, then here starts the process of investigating. And one of the things that I always encourage them, and in some of my training, is actually to train the workforce to let them know that this is part of a requirement to be able to start asking questions, talking to witnesses, speaking to the individual who got hurt, taking photos. And could that be intrusive to some employees? Like they're out to get somebody? Could that be something where an employee could be threatened by?
They probably could be threatened by something like that. You want to make sure that you document these things, and you document them in a way that is comfortable for people. But you also want to make sure that you get the adequate documentation to protect yourself, the company. So, I mean, it's a special process. It's a specific process. This is a pretty easy process that most supervisors and managers know about. But you've got to talk to the witness. You've got to take photos. You've got to review procedures and take notes. If it was a near miss, or if it wasn't that bad of an accident, you've still got to do these investigations.
Now, also, one of the things that you have to do is you have to fill out forms, right? And one of them would be like the 300 log.
Absolutely.
And now forms that actually outline in precision, like what happened, right? By taking photos, you're actually taking a record of the area of what happened, and that's very important. And asking for witnesses, in which some people sometimes they refuse to participate because they're a little bit scared of what to say or not to say. What a supervisor and what a manager says, and encouraging to be able to do this is really could help quite a bit. The process of doing that, there should, once this happens, we don't want it to happen again. So I guess the government is asking for all this to make sure that we are able to investigate this further by taking this documentation in place.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Now, here it says 8 hours. Now, I know some people are not California, but when it says that you have to report to a NOSHA office in 8 hours, now that doesn't apply to federal. Federal is not 8 hours, correct? I think there are other time frames.
I don't think that there are. I think it's 8 hours.
It's not 24 hours? I thought it was 24 hours for.
But everybody on this webinar should be from California.
Okay, so 8 hours in California, and in other words, what I'm saying is this is very crucial that we do this. We need to report this within an 8 hours. If we do not, what could happen, Sam?
You could be cited $5,000.
Ouch, 5,000. That's a lot of moolah.
$5,000. There's no way to get out of it unless you can prove that you didn't know about it. Which is impossible. I don't think anybody's ever gotten out of this.
Now, everything needs to be reported within 8 hours, or is it just serious?
No, just serious injuries.
Serious injuries.
Just serious injuries.
So sometimes if a manager or a supervisor has maybe a question, we're a great resource for that. They could give us a call, right?
Absolutely. They can call our office.
Call our office, and we could walk you through it. and just kind of break it down, and we'll consult with you, and that way you are confident in what you're doing could take place. So this is very important. Investigating accidents in the process we have to complete it whether we like it or not. Investigating accident reports. Now here, of course, investigation report should be submitted to all parties. The report should include suggestions on how to prevent such accidents in the future. So basically, this will help in the future for it not to happen again, because we're actually looking at the whole picture instead of fragmented part. Is that correct?
It is correct. These are, you're going to say what the heck's the difference between the near miss investigation and the accident investigation. There's probably not a whole lot of difference depending on how bad the accident was. But you've got to have some sort of form to fill out to do these accident investigations. Some companies have their own. Some people use I think it's a 50/20. So there's a couple different forms that you'd be using to do this, but you got to fill them out. You've got to take the information, pictures, videos. That's all good things to add to the investigation. And the report, the more information that you can gather, the better that this report will be.
So the more detailed report, if we take care in doing the report accurately and correctly, it won't come back to haunt you down the line. Is that what we're saying? I'm
saying that you want to know as much information as possible so that you can stop this again in the future. If you have bad accident investigation reports, they don't do any good for anybody.
That's right.
All they really do is make companies look like they've done something wrong because the reports are so terrible.
So we cannot take shortcuts when it comes to this part of the process. As supervisor managers, we really got to put attention to it.
I would say no shortcuts.
No shortcuts. There's a tendency, and here comes the knowledge, and we want to make sure that we have all the forms necessary based on what our company is requirements, as also what the law says, and understanding this part is very important. If you have any questions regarding what forms to use, give us a call.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Sometimes it could be daunting, and definitely we recognize that as such. But please make sure you understand how important this is.
My favorite part.
This one's important. Encouraging and motivating employees. Encouraging and motivating employees can include the following. But first, before we go through that, why is this important, Sam?
So you've got to encourage and motivate your employees to do a good job. A lot of us do this in different ways. Some people will think, well, I pay them. That's how I encourage and motivate them to work. I pay them. Well, there are other ways to give more encouragement and be more motivating. And they're easy. Being nice to people, not yelling at employees, working well with others, being calm when you listen to them, involving employees in safety processes. There's several things here, but you want to make sure that you do this in a good way that respects the employees, and you can get the best result from.
Sometimes what happens is also, if I may add to this,
Yeah.
is that there's a misconception of what a manager and supervisor does in the sense of when you're leading. And you know that saying, you get more with sugar or with honey than vinegar?
That's true.
That is the truth. And sometimes what happens is when people want to be respected and they want to be treated as professionals, people will respect you if you respect them, and if you treat them with dignity. See, the thing is this: the motivation and the encouragement also means that you're setting a groundwork to making sure employees know their responsibilities and that they're accountable for those responsibilities. If you're able to convey through the proper way by being professional yourself and treating them with respect and being able to have an open door policy of being able to encourage them to come to you by not being very quick to just start accusing somebody or judging somebody, but listening first. This really, what happens is at this point you're going to have a workforce that's going to open up to you, number one, and number two, they're going to respect you, that you're going to be able to make good decisions whatever they come across. Many times I've seen a lot of managers that have been promoted from the ranks, but they kind of miss this part of it. And they don't understand that sometimes they will start literally yelling at people. Have you heard of this, Sam? People kind of talking very roughly or harshly, or to the point where might get even to some situation where it could be uncomfortable.
I've seen it with in that situation before. I've seen it with people who don't come through the ranks. Jobs can be taxing on your mind, and people that do things over and over and over again can get under your skin and make you want to go crazy.
That's right.
So, but you got to have a way to deal with those things in a good way.
Also, I think when with this is communication is very important. I think sometimes we may be in a rush because being a manager supervisor is pretty rough sometimes, depending on what you're doing at the time of the day. Sometimes you may say certain things that are not clear, and could people make mistakes when one is not clear? And being concise within the safety and health policies and the expectations that you are, by being able to understand and making sure that they got it, I think would be an important part, right, Sam?
Absolutely would be. This seems like it would be easy to do. You just got to be a good person, deal with issues that come up fairly, and treat people with respect, and you'll be treated back in respect usually. If not, then of course you have to deal with that your own way.
That's right. That's
But
right.
You gotta keep on top of this.
It has to be. Also, another way of encouraging and motivating employees, I think, is very important for them to be involved and part of the process of safety. So if they're involved, it makes them want to do better. What is your experience on that, Sam?
Well, if you involve the employees in the safety process, then obviously you get more interaction. And the more interaction that the employees have, generally, the better things usually run. So it's a good idea.
I think that
I feel like they own it.
Yeah, exactly. And also if you encourage the participation, they are definitely feeling they're part of the process and they're part of the team. And also, believe it or not, a manager and a supervisor comes with this. Wow, I want to please my manager. A lot of employees love to be able to make their team happy and their manager happy. So here, when you involve them, that means they have a stake in the process, and that makes them even more motivated to be able to do what? To do their best. You know what? I didn't think about this, but now that we're talking about it and you're involving me here, well, let me give you an idea, right? All of a sudden they could contribute things to the process or to the company that maybe wasn't looking at that, and they could be great contributors to making it better. And then your whole how do you call it? The atmosphere just becomes so much productive and much happier. I would say that does.
Spot on, Javier.
How about listening? Are we sometimes good listeners, or sometimes we just don't have time to listen? Could this be that's just something for all of us to internalize?
That's a big part of the following through and making sure that the people are involved. If you're not listening, then you're not letting people be involved.
And this is, I think, one of the key parts for a manager, that if we don't develop this part, sometimes it could be a little difficult, and I understand that. But not being able to listen and just lead without listening could be it could make your job a little harder. I think that if you stop, take a deep breath and listen, and then be able to go ahead and give directives, it's going to make your job easier, and I think the whole thing a lot better. I just think so. Sam, listening?
I agree with you.
Yep.
I don't know how else you expand on that. Calmly listen. There you go.
One of the things that I always, when I train, I also talk about honesty and integrity. I believe that honesty and integrity are the fundamentals of successful careers, successful lives, and sometimes within that honesty and integrity, one's word uh, goes a long way in that honesty and integrity. So when sometimes you are promising something as a manager or supervisor and you do not come through, what does that say about you to your employees or the people that you're managing? Sam, what do you have a take on that? Could that be negative?
Well, if people don't trust you, the work environment will not be good. Um, you've got to be trustworthy. Nobody trusts you. It's not. Nothing ends well.
So everything, you're in trouble. Let's put it that way. In a nutshell, you're in trouble. So if you're going to say something and you're promising something, please come through with it. If you're going to replace something and you're going to work on something, maybe processes need to be fixed or replaced or procedures need to be done, please follow through with it. If you're going to promise something to an employee, make sure that if you can't do something, do not promise, because you could get in a situation where actually your employee is not going to trust you. So here, by actually being able to somebody count on you, just like you want to count on your employee to be on time, to do their job correctly, to make sure that they're being honest with you, one has to be doing the same thing in order to be able to motivate and encourage that employee to be part of your team. And your team, you're the leader. You got to take charge in this particular spot. I think these are great points, and I hope this will help you be able to look within your organization and be able to put some of these things into place. And I know you're going to be successful. Discipline. I don't like this one, Sam. Do you like discipline, Sam?
This is the best one.
But it's important, and it's a necessity, right? It is very, very important. Discipline. Discipline can include verbal, written warnings, and even termination. Sam, what is your take on discipline in the workplace, and why is this so important to have?
So discipline in the workplace doesn't need a whole lot of time to talk about because it's simple. In order for a company to have a safety program, you must have a disciplinary action plan. And whatever your stomach is for how it goes, how many verbal warnings you give or how many written warnings that you give before you terminate somebody or fire them, whatever the stomach is, it has to end in termination. This is probably one of the biggest issues I see to companies all the time, every day, where you have employees that consistently break rules and don't follow the process, but they get away with things because they might be difficult to replace, or because somebody doesn't want to go and look for somebody new or train somebody new. This is probably one of the most overlooked thing around that can really kill a safety program, because I guarantee you, when the rest of your crew looks and sees that you fired one of your employees for not wearing his safety glasses for the umpteenth time, the rest of them will start to wear their safety glasses, or they'll start to do whatever it is that you've been asking them to do. If you're their boss and you've asked them to do something and they don't do it, good heavens, if one of my employees did that, I'd fire them. Because they're not trustworthy anymore. And that's the way it should be. Whatever the stomach that you guys have for this, you've got to have a disciplinary action plan, and you got to fire somebody. It's terrible, but it's the only way to get your safety program enacted. Only way.
That is so true. Now, the reason why this is probably a lot of managers, supervisors' least favorite thing that they have to do. And some of them actually, they will do like a lot of verbal warnings and 100 verbal warnings and
Which is fine.
just, hey, I told you to put that in and just let it happen. That could be a problem because then that means just by giving warnings and warnings and warnings and verbal warnings, it's not going to get
Nobody
corrected.
cares.
And then at that point, they don't believe you're going to do anything about it. And could that person be in danger now of getting hurt? Well, yeah, he's giving me a verbal warning. He's really not going to do anything about it. But now, could that person be in danger of? I'm not wearing my glasses. They're in a dangerous situation. Could they lose an eye at that point?
Of course they are, but a bigger issue is they turn into a virus and they start infecting the employees around them. That because he doesn't care, now none of the rest of the employees are going to care because it spreads.
Oh, and now
Employees they don't care, they spread to each other. And if you don't have some sort of process for this, it always ends badly. Always ends badly.
So a disciplinary action plan should be part of your safety program. It is important to do so. So then that way, your company could benefit by everything that we talked about. This will actually ensure that your employees know that you mean business and you're doing it because it is a requirement. It is important to make sure that you're implementing it to protect everyone. Also, we have to be understanding that as managers and supervisors, sometimes we have to protect employees even from themselves. And if we don't stop it, it could be to their detriment because they could get hurt or even worse, expire because we did not make it a little bit more disciplined. So, Sam, I think that's dead on, right?
That's dead on.
So
right.
we got to do it even if we don't like it.
Yeah.
Very good
All right.
stuff.
Man,
Excellent.
we've been going an hour already.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to have to move along.
All right. So record keeping, let's move it along. Supervisor required to keep record keeping. And we talked about everything that we have to do, right?
We
Records
really
of
did.
inspections, training, accidents, like the 3 under log, maintenance records, disciplinary action records, and all the things that you're supposed to have. You should have them for at least 5 years. What is that? Is that a good time?
About 5 years, that's what CalOSHA requires. You'll want to
Okay.
make sure that you keep those.
All right. Let's move on.
All right.
And in conclusion, we made it. Hey, supervisors must have the knowledge about their obligations under the law and company policy. And I hope that we conveyed that to you, that and that you have a broader view of what your responsibilities are. You should become a leader, be able to motivate and to be able to handle anything that comes your way. And these are great tools for you to implement at all times. Supervisors should ensure that all forms and other pieces of required paperwork are properly filled out. Don't take any shortcuts, please. Make sure that you're doing it correctly because you want to be thorough and you want to make sure that you're doing it the right way for your company's sake, your sake, and your employees' sake. And remember, supervisors have a legal obligation to assure that safety and health of all employees who are working underneath them are compliant, that they're following and doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. And remember that it's your responsibility that all these lives have to be making sure that when they're under your watch, everybody's going to go home safe the day that you were taking care of business. I hope that this has helped you. It's been a pleasure for us at GotSafety to bring it to you. And if you have any questions, you could always call us after the Zoom. And we have some questions right after this. But if for any reasons you think of something else, you could call our 1-800 number, and then definitely we could call. So do we have any questions right now?
All right.
Yeah,
Haven.
we do got 2 questions here. I just want to remind everybody, though, if you do have any, type it in the chat box. But one person wants to know, where can they get a list of the topics that must be covered at least once a year for general industry supervisor?
Oh.
Right. I knew that someone was going to ask this question.
So what they are, Sam?
All right. So if they go to the California.gov website and they do a search for publications and trainings, they will find a list there of recommended lessons that they should do on a yearly basis. It's not a part of a code, but if you go to the ca.gov website, you'll be able to do a search there, publications / trainings. That'll come right up. And you'll be able to find it right on there.
And then the next question is, will you be emailing the presentation to the participants?
I believe that we will be posting it.
Okay. One more question just rolled in. What is the best way to certify an employee as a competent person for your company?
It's a good question. You've got to ensure that they do the training for whatever subject it is. Depending on what the subject is, they might need to go to some training of some classes so that they are competent, so that you know that they are competent in that particular field. We would definitely need more information as to what they should be competent in, or what you want them to be trained competent in. Because there's lots of certifications that for some things like cranes, or scaffoldings, or anything like that. There's hoists. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that people should go to some sort of formal training to be competent. But there might be other things that you could train in-house to ensure that somebody's competent. So it all depends on the actual subject matter. But if you have anything more specific, you can call our office, and would love to talk to you about anything specific on that note.
And then the last question here, will the PowerPoint be available for download, or just the video be available?
It's a good question. Probably just the video. I'll have to talk to my office and see if we can do that. But if you send me an email, sam@gotsafety.com, I might be able to hook you up with the PowerPoint presentation.
Well, that's all I got, guys.
All right. Wonderful.
All right. Well, so I'd like to thank everybody for coming in to our first meeting. We're going to be doing some others. I think our next one's going to be on a more specific note. It's going to be on lockout, tagout. So I know that this one was probably longer than you thought it might have been. But lockout tagout will be pretty specific. It'll be a good one, and how to implement it if you're a supervisor or management. It'll be a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you when we see you.